Yo, what up guys? We're back, and this week it's for a pretty good card here. We got Bobby Green taking on Islam Makhachev on short notice, so everyone's been pretty hyped about that fight. Shout out to Bobby Green for stepping up and taking the opportunity there. And pretty good fights all over the card, all over the main card. I'm pretty interested in a few fights, so definitely intrigued by this card. There's a few spots that I like betting-wise as well. I've already put a couple bets on this fight card. And just before we get the video started, like always, want to try to get 200 likes on this video, so hit that like button, try to comment down below, tell me what you think about my predictions and who you have winning the main event and all the other fights on the card. It should be a fun night of fights there. And then just if you want to get any additional content, I am going to be putting out a video this week for Bellator, and there's also a LFA, PFL, and KSW event this week. I think AEW Warriors as well, so there's quite a bit of MMA going on all over the world. So if you want to get some additional content, you want to get access to my full card betting packages for all those events, for the UFC events, make sure to check out patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. Been doing really good this year so far, so hoping to continue that on this card, and I really appreciate everyone that supports me over there. But getting into the fights for Saturday night, the first fight of the night here, we got Victor Altamirano. He's going to be taking on Carlos Hernandez. Should be a fun fight. Two Mexican fighters. They're both really tough guys, and two Contender Series guys. They're making their UFC debuts. Both these fighters, like almost every fighter in the flyweight division, they're very skilled. They're fun to watch. Victor Altamirano, he's actually the fighter that was born and trains still in Mexico, I believe, or maybe I'm incorrect about that. I think he trains out of Texas, but he definitely was born in Mexico. And he's almost fought exclusively in LFA. He's fought 11 times there, 10-1 record. He won the title, so had a ton of success in the LFA cage. And he was able to go on the Contender Series. He had a really fun fight. It was a close bout with Carlos Candelario, and he was able to get the split decision win. And it was against a fighter who was 7-1, so that was a good victory for him there. Carlos Hernandez, he's a fighter who also, like I said, just got a win on the Contender Series, and he's won 7 fights in a row since losing his MMA debut. He lost to a guy that was a really good wrestler. He wrestled in the Olympics in Gustavo Ballard, and he was taken down, kind of grinded out in that fight, but since then he's been perfect. He hasn't really faced many experienced or notable fighters whatsoever. I think if you look at the level of competition, Altamirano takes that one, but his last match, he did fight a Combat Sambo champion in Spain. It was a 12-4 fighter, and he looked like serious business in Daniel Perez, so that was a good win. But none of his other wins are very impressive. He did have a good amateur career, though, Hernandez. He was able to have a lot of amateur fights. He was an amateur world champion, and he has wins over amateur fighters like Jose Johnson, who did really well as an amateur, has had a pretty good career as a pro. Charles Johnson, who's the current LFA flyweight champion. So two fighters that are close to UFC level he has beaten as an amateur. And Carlos Hernandez, he's well-rounded. He reminds me a little bit of Christian Rodrigues, who we just saw fight last week. He's another young gun, and he has really good footwork. He'll stick and move very effectively. He's fast. He has really good feints. He picks his shots well. He'll attack the body. He does a good job with his kicking game. Nice low kicks, good front kicks, round kicks, flying knees, spins, and cardio-wise, I will say he does slow down a little bit, and he will become a little bit more hittable. He doesn't stay on his bike as much as he does in the earlier rounds and sticks in the pocket. He doesn't have the best head movement, but I do think that his cardio is getting better. His last fight, I think his cardio looked better than I've seen it in any of his other fights. He was able to push a little bit harder in that third round. And when he could touch, not get touched, be pretty, he's hard to deal with because he's fast and picks his shots well, has good distance control. And his takedown defense is alright. Definitely needs to improve a little bit, but his initial takedown defense is good. Fighters that can chain wrestle do have had success taking him down. And he also tends to give his back to stand up. But his get-up game is good. He is hard to hold down. He hasn't really proven he could beat a super strong wrestler yet as a pro, but in this fight, I think he's going to be clearly the better grappler. He has decent offensive grappling. He likes to shoot reactive takedowns, back guys up, get takedowns against the cage. And when he gets on top, he likes to take the back. He has all of his submission finishes by rear naked choke. and he's pretty good at doing that, finding the back. And his last fight, he was able to win that third round against Trevor Wells, or not his last fight, his fight previous to the Contender Series. He was able to win that third round against Trevor Wells with the takedowns to seal the win. And against Daniel Barrez, he was actually taken down a couple times, but he was able to pop back up to his feet pretty quickly every time, and I actually feel like he got the better of the grappling as a whole. So that's probably something that he's working on, trying to get better and shore up throughout his career. And Hernandez is training out of the VFS Academy, which is an up-and-coming gym out of Chicago. They actually have another fighter on this card who is Ignacio Bahamondes, so sure those guys have been getting a little bit of training together. For his opponent, Victor Altamirano, he's a very tall, long guy for flyweight. This fight he is going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage, and he likes to use a lot of kicks on the outside. He's a good kicker, nice leg kicks, good kicks to the body and to the head, and he will kind of try to explode in with some nice straight punch, nice 3-2s, 1-2 type of combinations, and he's very durable. So even though I don't really feel like his defense is very good, he's a hittable guy. Sometimes he can kind of like stick around on the outside and try to work these kicks where I think they're not super effective at times, and I think guys can kind of get off on him, land when he's throwing these naked on setup kicks. But he's able to keep the pressure, and he has good cardio and good durability, so he can take shots and give shots back. And if Carlos Hernandez starts to get a little bit tired in this fight, I do see that as a possibility for Victor Altamirano to start to take over, start to walk him down, land some big shots. I have seen Hernandez get stunned in a few of his fights, so I think durability-wise, Altamirano is the more durable fighter. And Victor Altamirano, he doesn't really go for takedowns, and he's had a lot of issues with guys taking him down. His takedown defense is not very good, but he has improved with his guard game. He's hard to really do much damage on when you get on top of him. It's hard to pass his guard. His get-up game isn't the best, but he'll use submissions to create scrambles, get back up to his feet, and he has improved a little bit with his get-up game. I feel like his last fight he actually lost due to being held down, but he was able to get the win by just being a little bit more active on the feet, and Carlos Candelario wasn't able to get a ton of damage off when he took him down. In this fight, I do think Hernandez is going to look to mix it up and get the takedowns, and I think he's the superior fighter technically. It's just, can he step up to the plate with that experience edge that Altamirano has and prove that he could stay sharp for 15 minutes against a dangerous guy that's going to have the cardio and the durability to keep walking him down, that has pretty good offensive weapons in his own right? I think he can, so I am going to go with Hernandez by decision, but it's an intriguing and interesting fight. Altamirano's a guy that I faded quite a bit. I've not been super high on him, and he's proven me wrong more than once. So he's a guy that is capable of pulling the upset, is a very close money line for a reason as well. But I'm going to go with Hernandez here. He's a little bit younger. I think he is a little bit faster, a little bit more skilled on the feet, has the wrestling advantage. And as long as he just stays sharp, doesn't slow down and get caught by submission or a finish from Altamirano, I think he'll get the win. So I'm going to go with Hernandez to get his first UFC victory. In the next one here, we got a welterweight fight between two guys trying to save their jobs here. We got Ramiz Brahimaj and Micheal Gillmore. Brahimaj, he's making a quick turnaround. He's coming in on short notice. He just fought about a month ago against Court McGee and was pretty much dominated in that fight. He got taken down at will, was outstruck, and just didn't really have much for McGee on the night. He was able to do a little bit on the feet, but really didn't show much. And I'm sure he wants to get that bad taste out of his mouth and get the win here against Gillmore. Gillmore has more to prove, though, because not only has he lost his UFC debut against Andre Petrosyan, he also lost his one fight on The Ultimate Fighter. He's 0-2 in 2021. He hasn't won a fight in over 2 years. And he is making the drop down to welterweight for the first for this fight, which is the weight class he fought at previously before going on the Ultimate Fighter show. So he was fighting out of his weight class on the Ultimate Fighter and in his first fight in the UFC. But he only has one win against a fighter with a winning record. That guy was 3-2. And Brahimaj is the first fighter that Gillmore has fought who has more than 10 pro fights. So he's not very experienced. Gillmore does have 10 amateur fights. He was able to beat Chaos Williams as an amateur. He's been fighting since 2012, so should be ready, but he needs to get the ball rolling if he wants to get to a high level. Gillmore, he is a good striker. He has pretty good footwork, nice hands. He's a counter puncher. He likes to move, be evasive, try to work low kicks, and when fighters try to close the distance on him, he has pretty fast hands. He will let go with 1-2s, 3-2s, and I've seen him stun a few opponents in his fights, and half of his wins are via knockout. So his power is evident. Sometimes he can be one and done, kind of a pot shotter, just throw the right cross either to the body or the head. And he needs to be a little bit more active. He does have good defense, good counters. If he stays sharp and makes fighters a bit hesitant to throw, that's when he's at his best, because he can start to walk him down and not really be as fearful as what's coming back at him, especially when the guys can't grapple. Grapplers are what have really given Gillmore trouble. He is facing another really good grappler on Saturday night, so it's going to be something that he has to prove to himself that he can beat, and definitely has been working hard on his grappling. You could tell he's improved, but we'll see if it's up to the test against Brahimaj. Gillmore started his career 3-3, and he got submitted in all 3 of his losses. He then put 3 wins together to get on the Ultimate Fighter, but got submitted on the show against Gilbert Urbina, and then got finished by a grappler via ground and pound against Armen Petrosyan. So this is Gilmore's last chance to prove he could beat a grappler and stay in the UFC, and hopefully he's been working on his grappling, because his original opponent was Johnny Parsons, who is a pure striker, so potentially Gillmore could have been thrown for a loop here with this new opponent, but Gillmore has a problem with throwing naked kicks, leg kicks, body kicks. Fighters have been able to catch his kicks or jam him on multiple occasions and get him down off that. Urbina was able to get the back of Gillmore less than 10 seconds into the fight because Gillmore threw a naked body kick, and Gillmore was never able to get Urbina off his back, and then ended up getting submitted less than 3 minutes into that fight. Against Armen Petrosyan, Gillmore had a better showing. He did get taken down early in round 1, but he was able to survive. Then he won the second round, in my opinion. The third round, though, Petrosyan wasn't fucking around. He took him down early, mounted him, finished him with ground and pound. And I think Gillmore is probably going to come in better shape and be a little bit harder to take down 170 pounds, and he needs to be. But this is a hard matchup for him personally, in my opinion, because we got a guy in Ramiz Brahimaj who can match the size of Gillmore. He has the longer reach, pretty much the same type of height. I don't really see Gillmore having a big advantage in terms of strength and size and body mass wise either. And Gillmore is older. He's almost 35 years old, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of extreme improvements in terms of his takedown defense, his submission defense on the ground, and it's going to be very hard for him to continue to stick around in the UFC. I think that Brahimaj, even though the stand-up wise I do favor Gillmore, Brahimaj, he does have some decent 1-2s, 3-2s. It seems like he has some alright power, his body kicks are alright, and tries to pressure. But this fight, it's going to come down to Brahimaj just doing what he does and being smart. He has to get the takedown here. I think if he does, he's going to have a massive advantage on the ground. And just be aggressive. Try to jam the kicks, Gillmore, stay in his face, get him down. And when you do get him down, I think the fight will be over. So I think Brahimaj is a really good submission threat, and I don't think Gillmore is going to be ready for that. Even though Gillmore's submission defense looked a little bit better against Petrosyan, I don't think it's going to hold up against Brahimaj. I think Brahimaj is going to come in there aggressive. He wants to come back, get that win after his loss in his last fight. I think he's going to get the takedown here early and get that submission win. So I'm going to go with Ramiz Brahimaj via first round submission. Even if this fight goes long, second, third round, I just think Brahimaj is going to be able to get him down and get the finish at some point. He's proven to be very durable. He's never been finished. So I don't think Gillmore's just going to flatline it with a punch. And I think eventually Brahimaj is going to be able to get it to the ground, get it in his world, and finish the fight. So Brahimaj by submission is the pick for me, and I'm going to say he gets it done in the first round. In this next fight, we got Alejandro Perez taking on Jonathan Martinez. Should be a fun fight. It's two guys that usually like to strike, but I think on the feed, Martinez is going to have a significant advantage. Perez, he is fairly good striking, but his defense is not where it needs to be against a guy that likes to pressure. Perez is a guy that likes to, fight pretty on the outside. He has a nice jab. He has really good leg kicks, and he kind of wants to try to pull guys into pull counters, but I don't think he has the speed to do that against a guy like Martinez. I think Martinez is going to be too fast. I think he's going to be walking him down and being able to slip the jab, come back with shots of his own. He's going to be landing kicks to the body, to the legs, and I think that he's really going to have a significant advantage on Perez on the feet. Another thing about Perez that I don't really like is I think he's a little bit chinny. He's been knocked out a few times, and don't really have the best faith in his chin. He did come back in his last fight against Johnny Eduardo, and I thought he was losing the fight, but he ended up getting the takedown eventually and finishing on the ground. And he does train at AKA, so obviously he's gotten some grappling skills over the years, but I don't think he's going to be able to take down and finish a guy like Jonathan Martinez on the ground, who's proven to have good takedown defense against solid wrestlers, has good get-ups, and isn't a guy that is a fish out of water on the ground like Johnny Eduardo is. I don't think that Martinez's cardio is going to fall off a cliff like Eduardo's does either. So I just think Martinez is the clearly superior fighter here. He is a fairly big favorite in this fight. I think he's actually the third biggest favorite on the card besides Islam and Ramiz Brahimaj, and I think it's warranted, man. I think that he's going to go out there and actually get the knockout against Alejandro Perez. So going to go with Jonathan Martinez in this one to get the job done. And up next here we got a women's strawweight fight here with Jinh Yu Frey and Hannah Goldy. Jinh Yu Frey, she's looking to make it 3 wins in a row, and I'm glad she's getting some big-time success in the UFC after she had a really long career at atomweight and did a good job there. And she got in the UFC late, but at 36 years old, she's still kicking, and she's trying to make one last run in her career. For a long time, the dream being in the UFC didn't really seem like it was in the cards for Frey. Frey, like I said, was fighting at atomweight, and she was able to get some championships in other organizations, but obviously the UFC did not have that division. In 2020, Frey decided to bump up and take a short-nosed fight at strawweight. She fought against Kay Hansen, which was a good matchup because Hansen also had fought at atomweight previously, and the fight didn't go Frey's way, and neither did her second fight in the UFC. She fought another girl in Lomluc Bunmi, lost that fight, but she went undefeated in 2021. She was able to get the upset win over Gloria DePaula and then get the win over Ashley Yoder as well. You could argue Hannah Goldy is a step down in competition, but she's still a test that Frey can't afford to fail because obviously Goldy is a little bit lower on the totem pole. She saved her job in her last UFC fight. She was able to get a win after going 0-2 in her first 2 attempts, and she decided to take a risk. She went up in weight. She fought on short notice, but paid off for her. She got the first round submission win over Emily Whitmire. Prior to that, she had decision losses to Miranda Granger and Deanna Belbita, and it's good to see Goldy being active. You know, she did not fight for almost 2 years. She returned against Belbita in July, fought in September, now fought in February, so this is her 3rd fight in 7 months. And the winner of this fight, especially if it's Jinh Yu Frey, is probably going to get to fight a ranked fighter next, so it is a pretty big fight overall. For Goldy, I do think she's improved her striking. She's sitting down in her punches more, throwing with more heat. And she's always going to struggle a bit in the stand-up, though, because her reach and her height, she isn't really the fastest with her feet, and she does try to counterpunch against fighters that are good at controlling distance. I mean, you're never going to be able to counterpunch when you have a reach disadvantage and you're not super fast. Another thing about Goldy is she has a lot of muscle, like she's super ripped, and I think that does make her a little bit stiff. She will try to mix in her kicks, but kicks have not really been super effective in MMA. She struggles a lot against fighters that can stick and move, stay long. Like I said, she isn't really the fondest of, or she isn't really the fastest with her feet, and she isn't the fondest of getting hit. So after she takes a few shots, she will stay on the outside and try to counter. She doesn't want to be hit, and she just kind of becomes kind of easy girl to just pick apart. She was dominating the striking realm against Miranda Granger. Deanna Belbita was able to hurt her, drop her a couple of times, and really beat her up on the feet. But Goldy is durable, and she's strong. Sometimes she will blitz in and try to get the clinch. Her takedown game is not the best, but when she can get on top, she has good ground and pound. She has good control. Her takedown defense is okay. Her last fight, she was losing the majority of the fight after being taken down, but was able to find that arm bar off of her back. And that was Goldy's first submission win of her career, so that's not something that you usually see from her, but she has been training with girls like Jillian Robertson, things like that, so obviously she maybe has been working a little bit on her jiu-jitsu and showed it off there. But she has good cardio. She's never been finished, so you have to expect to fight for 15 minutes when you face off against Goldy. And her opponent, Jinh Yu Frey, a very experienced girl. She's a slick southpaw, and she's a way better technical striker. She has good speed, distance control, good job pot shotting with the straight left, good left kick as well, pretty good elbows. Her takedown defense is good. If you force Frey to wrestle, she will slow down, and if you can hold her down, she will start to make mistakes as she gets tired and you can finish her. But I don't really feel like Goldy has the ability to take her down. I think in the clinch, Frey actually has the better weapons and is more dangerous there. At range, Frey has a big advantage. Goldy's going to have to land a big counterpunch or land an opportunistic takedown and go to work from there. I think Frey actually has sneaky power, though, and I think that after Goldy takes some shots, she's going to want to go back into that defensive shell. Goldy's best chance to win, in my opinion, is to get on top and try to finish there, but I just think Frey is too experienced, too skilled, and she's likely going to be able to get the decision in her third win in a row here. She has the reach advantage by a pretty significant margin, the speed, and I think she's just the better fighter. So Jinh Yu Frey is the pick for me here.
Next one, you got a fight between two prospects with Terrance McKinney and Fares Ziam. Terrance McKinney, he leapt on in the UFC scene 5 months ago. He knocked out Matt Frevola in 7 seconds, the fastest finish in UFC lightweight history. And, you know, that's the way to debut, man. You got to talk to Joe Rogan, stole the show that night. And that's the type of explosive finishing ability McKinney brings to the cage. He's had 6 submissions. He has 6 sub 1 minute finishes, so he's finished 6 fights in less than a minute. He has 2 sub 1 minute losses as well. So 2 times he's went out there and lost in less than a minute. 6 times he's went out there and won in less than a minute. Pretty wild. He's never been in decision. He's only been out of the first round 1 time, or twice, excuse me, and he's 1-1 in those fights. He went past the first round against Sean Woodson on the Contender Series. He got hit with a flying knee and knocked out. And he went to the third round in a fight in 2018 and got a heel hook victory in the third rounds. And you know, McKinney, I mean, the way he fights, he comes out, he's like a bat out of hell early. I mean, obviously, when you look at his record, you're going to think that. He just throws caution to the wind with his striking, closes the gap, throws 1-2s, has a really nice high kick. But defensively, I mean, he's right there to be hit, man. He turns it into 50-50 firefights. And earlier in his career, he wasn't getting a lot of finishes on the feet. Starting to happen more recently. What he would do early in his career is create that chaos to level change. He has a really good single leg, and he has good back takes, good rear naked choke is alright. He has okay submission game. I feel like he's more of a control guy on the ground and grounded pound guy on the ground, but he does have a few submission victories. And, you know, I feel like in this fight, it's going to come down to McKinney's fight IQ, how he lets the gas go, because if he goes crazy the first round, gets tired, Ziam lasts, and, you know, has better cardio down the stretch, he could beat him. Or if McKinney just goes out there wild and striking, because Ziam's a very technical striker, could catch him and knock him out. And McKinney has to go back to the grappling here, in my opinion. He has to take down Ziam and show Ziam, you know, you're a kickboxer, I'm a wrestler, and I'm going to do what I want you on the ground, and either find that ground and pound or submission finish. Ziam, you know, he has been finished by submission 2 times as a pro, so that's something that you have to look at. And the submission was a rear naked choke, which Terrance McKinney does a good job of getting to that back position, so that is going to be available to him. So I feel like that's what he's going to be looking for. Get that submission in this fight or a ground and pound finish. Obviously, if he gets another quick knockout, that's going to be great for his highlight reel, and it is a possibility, but don't think that's the highest you know, likelihood or path for Terrance McKinney to win. I think McKinney should grapple here and win that way. For Ziam, he's 2-1 in the UFC. He lost to Don Madge. Then he beat Jamie Malarkey, beat Luigi Vendramini. And he's a lot more inherited than McKinney, but he's 24 years old himself, and he's going to be looking to steal some hype here. And, you know, Ziam, when you look at him, he's a very technical kickboxer. He's long, he's rangy, sticks and moves, and, you know, more of a point fighter. But, you know, he has some dangerous attacks, flying knees, things like that. He could land and knock out McKinney for sure, especially if he just lands clean on the chin. Ziam, you know, he has been match-made well in the UFC. I mean, outside of Jamie Malarkey, who, you know, obviously is not like from the United States where we have a great wrestling background. You know, he's from Australia, and, you know, I don't think he's the highest level wrestler. He's able to take down Ziam fairly easily, control him on the ground. Don Madge was able to control Fares Ziam in the grappling. He's a kickboxer. And then Luigi Vendramini, you know, more of a striker, even though he has the black belt, couldn't really get the fight to the mat. So McKinney, I think, will be able to get the takedowns if he goes for him, and probably will be able to control on the ground, dominate, and get the finish. So I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney, but this is one of these fights that I feel like it's going to come down to Terrance McKinney's fight IQ, and it could go either way, because you look at Terrance McKinney, I mean, I actually like his personality. I think that, you know, social media presence is good and everything like that, but you know, he's very confident, very high on himself, and very high on his striking, things like that. So if he goes in there and thinks he's a striker, and gets caught, that could be a possibility. But I think McKinney will go in there and get the job done. So I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney.
And up next here, we got another female fight with Josiane Nunes taking on Ramona Pascual. And I'm going to go on a little rant here. I got a little bit of a beef with Bet Online. I mean, not really, but I had a bet. I put a bet on Nunes at minus 135, which would have been great value if you're looking at where the line is now, obviously. And they had her listed as Amanda Nunes for some reason when they originally dropped the line. So they took the line down, they took my bet away, and then they re-put the line back up at like minus 200. So, I thought that kind of sucked. Thought they could have, honored me that bet, because I don't think they were, lining the fight differently than what they were trying to do it at that time. They just had the name wrong, but it is what it is. But with this fight, we got Josiane Nunes taking on Ramona Pascual, and Nunes, she made her UFC debut in style last August. She went in her fight as an underdog, but she put Bea Malecki to sleep. With the overhand left in the first round. She's been off for a while. Prior to that fight, she had not fought for a long time, but ring rust didn't really look like an issue for her. And she's a gangster because she was expecting to fight two other opponents on this card here, this date. They both pulled out, and she's normally a 135-pounder. And now she's deciding to take a third different opponent in a really big girl up at 145 pounds. So she's moving up in weight here. And overall, Nunes is on a 7-fight win streak. She's knocked out her last 6 opponents in a row. She's 8-1 in her career, with her one loss coming to Taila Santos. So that's nothing to be ashamed of there. She does still need to prove herself. All of her wins outside of the Malecki win happened in Brazil, and she's really yet to face much high-end competition. But her opponent, Ramona Pascual, she's getting the opportunity she wanted. She had a dominant victory in Invicta. That was about a month ago, or a little over a month ago. And Pascual called for the UFC shot, and now she's getting a call on short notice here. She's getting the chance to jump in here and fight a girl that she should have an advantage in terms of size and things like that. And, she has a lot to fight for. She wants to shine a light on the issues in China with Hong Kong, so she definitely is fighting for more than herself. She's 33 years old, so a little bit up there in age to be making your debut. So she has to win and get going now if she wants to get in the title picture. And she can make bantamweight. She's fought there a couple times. I'm not sure if she's going to want to stay at featherweight or go back down to bantamweight for the rest of her UFC career, but definitely comfortable up at featherweight. Her last fight was at 150, and she's fought in the featherweight division 3 times. She's 6-2, and she's won 3 fights in a row by first round finish. So both girls are aggressive and dangerous early. It should be a fun fight. And the level of opposition for Ramona is definitely questionable. Her last fight was against a short notice replacement opponent who came in on like 1 or 2 days notice. And that girl was definitely not on Pascual's level. Her other 5 wins came against opponents with 0 wins or losing records. 4 Pascual's wins came against fighters with 0 wins, and the one fight where she was able to defeat a fighter that had a decent record, 2-0, was her last fight against a girl that I just was not very impressed with either. Her 2 losses came against Jennifer Norris, who's a lesser-known fighter, and then Janae Harding, who's obviously a Bellator girl. And Josiane Nunes, her fighting style, she's a striker, she has a good chin, and she's short. She's 5'2", so it makes it hard for fighters to find the target on her. And she can kind of work her way into range with the head movement. She might be the shortest 145-pounder in UFC history, and probably definitely is, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But she bobs and weaves her way in, and then throws big hooks. She does a good job going body head with her attack, and she has some real power. She enters range a little recklessly, and a lot of girls are not ready for that intensity that Nunes brings. When Nunes gets fighters to the cage, she has no problem brawling, trading hooks, and she's very dangerous there. She isn't super technical, but she could put some combinations together on the inside. Her speed in her last fight seemed to cause Bea Malecki a lot of issues, and Nunes was able to blitz in. She was using the Superman punch a lot, push Malecki back, and when she had Malecki against the fence, she was able to pour it on and really take her out of there with combinations. She likes to chop down girls with low kicks, so she will mix up her attack and vary it up a little bit. Against girls with good movement, footwork, she can struggle, but she has the ability to weather damage, and she doesn't need to land much to change the way the fight is going. She does have some issues in the clinch with her size, but she was able to take out a really tall, long Muay Thai fighter in the last fight. She didn't have much trouble getting inside, and her cardio looked good. I mean, I feel like she has good cardio. The blueprint for Ramona to win is there. It's got set by Dion Barbosa and some other girls. Barbosa is better than her record indicates. She's a great athlete. She trains with Cyborg. She's well-rounded, but Barbosa took the approach of grappling against Nunes, and for the better part of the first round, she was able to control her from the top position. Nunes had a little more success in round 2, but she got taken down and controlled in that round as well. She ended up, getting on top, though, near the end of that third round, and, was able to do some damage, and then got back up to her feet and got a TKO with 10 seconds left, so she turned that fight around quickly. She is small for the division, and she will blitz in, give her hips. Sometimes she will jump guillotine. She can get stuck kind of hanging on her back, looking for sweeps and submissions. But eventually she can usually explode, get back up to her feet. And when she can get on top or get a reversal, drop someone, get on top, however it happens, she's aggressive with her ground and pound. She has big power there as well. But her top control isn't that good. In this fight, she's going to want to avoid getting put on her back against the bigger girl and the better grappler in Ramona. But Nunes, she's proven that she's hard to finish on the ground, and she has good cardio. She can get up and do well. I don't think Nunes will ever be champion at 135 or even 145 because of her size. She reminds me of Jessica Andrade, kind of without the ground game. And we saw Andrade was not able to find sustained success at bantamweight. She went all the way down to strawweight. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nunes transition to 125 at one point, but she still can beat some bigger girls even at the upper weight classes because she has the power to translate up and is aggressive, fearless, and she can get the fight. If she can keep the fight on the feet, she's going to have a lot of success against a lot of girls. But Ramona is a grappler. She's strong. She's big for the division, especially when she fights at 135. And her stand-up, I still think it needs work. She has decent boxing. She will throw some good kicks. But her footwork is not the best. She can be backed up, but it seems like she's improving with her distance control, trying to counter with the check hook or the rear cross. Her high kick is pretty good, but she is a little bit stiff and awkward. And if she tries to shell up and has some of those bad defensive tendencies that I've seen in the past against Nunes, I think she can get herself in some big trouble. She was able to get in the clinch and manhandle certain opponents throughout her career, and I feel like she's going to want to try to do that against Nunes. She got to finish striking in her last fight, but I don't think she's going to have much of a chance of finishing on the feet here. She does have good wrestling. She will try to duck under, time the body lock, and she is relentless with her grappling. Even if she takes damage, she will continue to try to go for the takedown. She has good knees, and I expect that to be a big part of her game, trying to get in that Muay Thai clinch and throw knees. She will try to use the single to come up into the body lock, and she does a good job of, when she gets on top, trying to work quickly and overwhelm girls. She likes to get the crucifix position. She has a lot of quick finishes, good ground and pound, good submissions. I don't really feel like she's the highest level on the ground. In her fight with Janae Harding, she lost position a few times and eventually got tired and got finished with ground and pound herself. She will go for guillotines and put herself on her back, and she can gas herself out going for takedowns. That's what happened against Janae Harding, and she doesn't really look the best when she ends up on bottom. She spent a large majority of her fight with Si Woo Jin early with her back stuffed against the cage. She didn't really look like she knew how to get her back off the fence, and I think girls who are good wrestlers will be able to give her work. I think cardio-wise, there's a lot to question there with Pascual. She hasn't been out of the first round since 2017, and her one fight that went to decision was only 2 rounds. She has been finished twice. One was in the 3rd round, the other was late in round 2. And I just think Nunes has too much experience here. Pascual is big, and if she can get in the clinch or get on top, she may have some success, but Nunes is not easy to take down. She's going to be intense. She's going to throw heat. If she does get taken down, she's going to stay safe, get back up to her feet. And I don't think Ramona has seen someone like Nunes before. I'm not sure she's going to be able to deal with that aggressiveness, and I think that Nunes is going to be able to get her out of there with strikes. So I'm going to go with Nunes via late first round knockout or second round knockout. This next fight here, this is an awesome fight here with Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Zhu Rong. It should be a really interesting one. I mean, both these guys are 2 young guys. They usually like to go to war, and they're coming off their first wins in the UFC. Both of them won via knockout. Bahamondes was way more extraordinary. He got that perfect spinning wheel kick. Zhu Rong just got a ground and pound finish over Brandon Jenkins. But Zhu Rong made history in his last fight with the victory. He became the first fighter born in the 2000s to win a fight in the UFC. and no fighter's been able to do it since then. So Rong could do it twice before anyone else even did it once. And his last fight, he was able to mix it up and showed his grappling and showed his progression. And I think he needs to do that here. In a lot of fights, he likes to keep it stand up and look for the knockout. But in this fight, I do expect him to try to wrestle. He's facing off against Bahamondes, who's a dangerous striker, and really good kicking game for Bahamondes. I think the easiest path to victory for Zhu Rong is to try to put the pressure on him, jam his kicks, get the takedown. And, being 21 years old, training an American top team, he's been there for a while now. They're going to probably have a good game plan for him. And he's definitely the type of athlete that is going to be picking up techniques quickly, improving every day. So I'm sure he's going to be looking to implement a grappling type of game here on fight night. On the feet, he's no slouch either, though. He has some power in his hands. He has 12 knockouts. He's more of a counterpuncher, and that cost him in his debut. He did not let enough volume go, lost the first 2 rounds, and he did rock Vargas in the 3rd round, but didn't do enough to get the decision win. That was Rong's first fight outside of China, and now that he's fought a couple times in the United States, he's been training in the United States, I don't expect him to have as many flat performances like that, most likely, but he likes to pressure, feint, and then counter with the straight right hand. Good 3-2s, 2-3s, and fast hands, sharp. He has power, like I said, and he's dangerous in the pocket. His last fight, he did a good job countering when Brendan Jenkins would attack spins. He actually dropped Jenkins twice when he went to spin. So in this fight, he's likely going to be looking to do the same against Bahamondes, time the spin with a big counter punch, or jam it and get the takedown. He isn't a big kicker, but he will throw some head kicks, and he will try to throw high kicks when he can back guys up to cut him off. And in this fight, he has to be more aggressive, come forward, use his combinations, and try to back Bahamondes up and get the takedown. He can move in and out quickly, but he's pretty flat-footed at times, and fighters can keep it long range, pot shot him, and strike and move pretty effectively. But Zhu Rong is a decent grappler. He's a strong kid, and when he can get a hold of opponents who aren't great wrestlers, he usually can muscle them to the ground. He has a good single, he has decent wrestling against the cage, and he's good at catching kicks and getting takedowns that way, which I expect him to try to do in this fight. In his last fight, he had success late in the 1st round. He dropped Jenkins, was able to get on top, have some control time, and he went right back to the grappling in the 2nd round almost right away. He backed him up, got the takedown, and then stayed on top of him for the remainder of that round, which showed good fight IQ because I believe he felt he could dominate once he got on top after dropping Jenkins, and went right back to it really quickly in the 2nd. But he was able to finish with ground and pound in the 3rd round after dropping Jenkins again. And he has decent control. He likes to take the back. And I think his top game will just continue to improve as he gets older. He has good ground and pound. Isn't really a big submission guy, but his opponent here, Ignacio Bahamondes, is one of, if not the biggest lightweight on the roster. He's 6'3", 75.5-inch reach, and he uses it well. He's a former kickboxer, and he has pretty slick striking, good lateral footwork. He likes to switch stances. He feints quite a bit. He does a good job keeping fighters guessing, and he's fluid with his punches and his kicks from both stances. So you have to be very wary of all his attacks from whichever side he's on. And he likes to mainly pick at guys on the outside. Good jabs, good check hooks, good leg kicks. He'll go body head. And when fighters pressure him, he'll sit down, try to counter with power crosses or check hooks. Good job bringing his knees up when fighters come forward and digging the body or going up to the head. And his last fight against Roosevelt Roberts, he was fighting a fighter who was coming off a knockout loss. And I do think Roberts fought very timid. So Bahamondes was able to pressure Roberts and have a lot of success putting body-head combinations together. I don't see him having as much success being able to back up Rong, who's young, confident, and a good counter-puncher with power. But Bahamondes will kick to all parts of the body. When you give him space, he'll get really fancy and throw beautiful kicks like spinning heel kicks, and obviously his last fight ended that way. He's more of a striker that goes to work with his boxing, though, in my opinion. His kicks are not going to be his bread and butter throughout his career. Defensively, you can cut him off and get on the inside. He doesn't move his head much, and he can't get clipped in exchanges. But when he's moving, he could stick and move. He's good at touching you up with his hands. In his fight with John McDessie, he did take a lot of damage. He got rocked several times. Being young still, he has a good chin. He could take punishment, but he needs to shore it up defensively. His last fight against his last losses, against Makhachev DEC and Salvador Becerra, it was due to him getting pressured, backed up, and getting landed on the inside. Most fighters at Bahamondes' current level, though, are really going to struggle against his footwork and striking acumen, and he does have 9 knockouts in his 12 wins, but I'm not too sold on his grappling. I haven't seen him fight too many grapplers. In his match with Preston Parsons back in the day, he got taken down and got submitted very easily in the first round. Then he had another fight against a 3-3 opponent in 2017 where he got submitted as well in that fight, got taken down very easily. Gave his back, got choked out. And if Rong comes in here with a good game plan, I think he's going to be able to potentially get the takedowns and win the fight. But his takedown defense for Bahamondes looked improved against Roosevelt Roberts. It looked better against the cage. I don't really think Roberts is a great wrestler, but Bahamondes was able to stuff a few of his takedowns, keep it on the feet, and get back to range when Roberts tried to get in the clinch with him. He has great cardio, and he does try to weaponize his cardio. He throws a lot of volume. And if he can keep the fight standing, get his rhythm, he is going to win this fight. But Zhu Rong is a guy I think is being undervalued here. He's fast hands, he has power, he has good striking. He likes to counter. And we've already seen a good counterpuncher in John McDessie, who's not known for having a lot of power, rock Bahamondes and land a lot of counters. I think Rong is the better grappler as well, and if he can get a takedown, he's going to have a lot of weapons on the ground to finish with his ground and pounder, taking the back and getting the submission. I think even if he struggles a little bit to get the takedowns, he will have some clinch control time. And I do actually think Rong will get takedowns in this fight, though. If this fight was closer to a pick'em, maybe I would lean towards Bahamondes, but the line is way off in my opinion. Rong is more powerful, he's more durable. I think he has better grappling, he's training at a better camp. 5 months of training with some of the best fighters and coaches in the world for a 21-year-old is a lot of time. And I think that Rong's going to be more confident. He's going to come in, look better. He's coming off his first win in the UFC. And Bahamondes is a great fighter. He's young. He could strike. He's going to continue to improve his wrestling. And if he could stay at 155 pounds, he could become a problem. I just think he's overvalued here coming off that knockout of the year contender. And Rong could be a good value play. So I'm going to go with Zhu Rong. Another thing about this fight is Bahamondes does sometimes have issues with his weight cut. So if he has a rough weight cut, that even more sways me towards Rong. I think that he could maybe even find that chin at that point. But I'm going to go with Rong here to win a decision using his grappling mainly. This next fight, I think it's pretty easy to call, but it has a little bit of unpredictability to it because of the power for Armen Petrosyan. But on a sneaky good main card, man, this is an excellent fight, and I'm excited for it. We got Gregory Rodrigues, who's exceeded expectations in recent years after being knocked out by Jordan Williams. I don't think many people would have expected him to go 3-0 in the UFC. And going to Sanford MMA has really turned around Rodrigues' career. He's gone 4-0, and he was able to win the LFA title. He's coming off a TKO win in the UFC. So he definitely is really good, but in his way is a really scary guy, Armen Petrosyan, who's a super dangerous guy. He's a really aggressive knockout artist, and he has a record of 6-1 with 6 knockout wins. I actually thought that he was the kickboxer for some reason, but when I looked more into it, they're actually not the same guy. So that's something that I think maybe swaying some people. They might think that he has that extensive kickboxing background, but I don't think they're the same person. But Petrosyan not really proved himself too much in MMA. Like you said, 6-1, so 7 fights. His last fight, he did get the first round finish on the Contender Series against a 10-0 fighter. And Petrosyan has not really fought any fighters that have established themselves in the MMA scene yet, though. His one loss, he got knocked out in the first round. He is 31 years old, so that's something that I think, being that age, he's already older than Gregory Rodrigues, and not really having that background in grappling, I think could be a big hindrance to him. Petrosyan, he's also cutting down to 185 pounds for the first time since 2019, so that's something to monitor as well, but I do think he's been preparing to move back down to 185 even before he won in the Contender Series, because he was talking about Israel Adesanya, so he weighed in at 201 as well. He's not the biggest light heavyweight, so I expect him to make weight and look good, and but I just don't have a lot of faith in Armen Petrosyan here. I see some people picking him and going with him to get the upset here, and he is an aggressive striker. I mean, the guy looks very fast, and it looks like he throws nice 1-2s. He'll try to end his combinations with the body kick, but very wild guy. I mean, he's very open to be hit himself. His chin is right in the air, and I do think that a guy like Gregory Rodrigues with power and decent boxing could potentially exploit that and land a big shot. Petrosyan does have a chance to connect on Rodrigues, because I think sometimes he does try to grab on the inside, and his defense can't be the best, and we've seen him rocked in fights and knocked out previously, so I think that Arman does have a chance to obviously touch that chin and get him out of there, but from what I've seen, I mean, Petrosyan, I don't think he has the greatest chin himself. I've seen him get knocked out in a fight, and I do believe that his grappling is not very good at all. I mean, even in his last fight, he got taken down several times, and even though he's from and trains, he's from Armenia, I've seen him training in Dagestan and Russia quite a bit. I think he won like the Russian Muay Thai championships and things like that, so he does have a good Muay Thai background. He probably is dangerous in the clinch, but his takedown defense and just game off his back does not look very good. Gregory Rodrigues, even though on the feet he can be a little stiff, he's really improved his striking since going to train with Henry Hooft. He has good power, good counters, and pretty good front kicks. He backs guys up. He's a big presence in the cage. He has a 5-inch reach advantage in this fight. And when he gets guys backed up, he tries to get in the clinch and get the takedown, or shoot it on the legs and get the takedown. And he is a former Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champion, I believe, or maybe it's just Brazilian champion, but I know he won some championships in Jiu-Jitsu as well, and he's dangerous on the ground. He has good transitions, and I don't think Petrosyan is going to be ready for that. I think that Petrosyan has an off chance to get a quick knockout, but I think more than likely Rodrigues is going to get him down, get his back, and submit him or pound him out with ground and pound. I think Rodrigues is going to be on a different level on the ground and kind of expose Petrosyan a little bit here. And continuing this main card, man, I told you it was a great main card. Up next here we got Arman Tsarukyan taking on Joel Alvarez, two guys that lost their UFC debuts but have been tearing it up since then, and they both had reasons to lose their UFC debuts. Joel Alvarez went in there against Demiris Magulov, who, man, I wish that motherfucker would fight more often, bro. Demiris Magulov's a beast. I love watching him. I think he could potentially, move up towards the top end of that division, but it seems like he just fights very infrequently. And then Arman Tsarukyan, he went in there against Islam Makhachev. So Makhachev obviously headlining this card and one of the best fighters in the world at lightweight currently. So can't really be mad at either of those losses. Alvarez, he did kind of get dominated against Ismagulov, whereas Arman had a much better showing against Islam. But since then, I would argue that Alvarez has been more impressive because he's been able to go in there and he's fought, in my opinion, better opponents, especially his most recent opponent, Thiago Moises, and he's been getting finishes, whereas Arman Tsarukyan did get a finish in his last fight against Christos Giagos, but before that had 3 decision victories in a row against more lesser opponents, I believe, than the opponents that Alvarez was facing. Well, actually, I don't know. That's unfair because ultimately, I mean, he did fight Olivier Aubin-Mercier and he also fought Davi Ramos, two fighters that are really good. I just don't think either of those guys are as good as Thiago Moises, but as a whole, I guess Arman has fought better opponents if you look at all of them, but I think Alvarez has the best opponent that he's defeated out of either guy. But this fight's really interesting because Alvarez, he's a huge guy. He's missed weight twice in a row, and hopefully he makes weight for this fight because I've seen Arman say in interviews that he won't accept the fight if Alvarez comes overweight, but I think that's probably more just talk. He just probably wants him to have that stress to make the weight and really push hard, but I think either way, this fight is going to go down unless Alvarez just misses weight by a big margin or some extenuating circumstances for either guy. But looking at the fight, I mean, like I said, Alvarez, I feel like is the more dangerous guy. He has more finishes. He likes to pressure and really use those long-range weapons like his front kicks, straight punches. He's very fast, and he beats guys up on the feet, makes them want to shoot in on him. And Alvarez's wrestling and takedown defense is really bad. He's never actually defended a takedown in the UFC, but I think he lets guys take him down because he has so much faith in his jiu-jitsu and submission game off of his back. Alvarez has several submission victories. He has, I believe, 3 submission victories in the UFC. If not, it's 2, and then he has a ground and pound finish. But he is a guy that if you're on top of him, you have to be very, very, very careful in his full guard. He has great arm bars. He'll look for the neck and get the guillotine. He just is very, very good off his back. Great triangles. But one thing I did notice is Damir Ismagulov, when he did take him down, he was able to sit heavy in half guard and really control him fairly easily there. I feel like Armen is a very smart guy. If he can get the body lock, kind of circle to the back, maybe get a slam, get straight into side control, and then settle into half guard, or settle, in side control, wherever he feels comfortable and he feels like there's not a huge threat from Alvarez to get the submission, he could probably get the takedown and hold him down pretty easily. On the feet, I do think it's interesting. I mean, Armen has that really good in and out movement, and he tries to pot shot and then get the takedowns for most of his fights, but he does have dangerous weapons because throws a lot of spins, you'll throw flying knees. In his last fight, he showed power in his hands. And Alvarez, he's much more, in my opinion, aggressive on the feet. Like, he likes to walk you down, throw a lot of volume, and try to either knock you out or overwhelm you to where you want to shoot in on him, like I said. But another thing that is a big thing for Alvarez just in his fights in this division is just his length, man. He's 6'3", and Armen obviously 5'7". It's just, if he's walking you down and throwing long strikes, backing you up, it's hard to close that distance, man. And he's very good, very aggressive, very fast, sharp. And early on in fights, I mean, he can overwhelm a lot of guys. 3 of his UFC wins have ended in the first round, and 13 of his 19 wins overall have ended in the first round. So goes out there and tries to get the job done early. With Armen, I think he's going to try to be smart in this fight and move around and get the takedowns pretty quickly. I think once he gets the takedowns, maybe later in the fight he could have a little bit more success striking and landing some counters. But I think he has to get that takedown early, cement position, show Alvarez that he can control him on top, and his submission game is going to be nullified in this fight. Maybe get him a little bit tired and then go to work. But this is a difficult matchup for anyone that's fighting a guy like Alvarez at 155. Armen is a beast, and I think that he's going to exploit that wrestling defense of Alvarez and be smart, be able to avoid the submission. But this is a fight that I'm not very confident in. I haven't been good at picking Alvarez fights anyways. And Alvarez, there is a lot of money coming in on him. His line has dropped pretty significantly, so he does have some backers once again this week. And why not? I mean, he's been a money train for a lot of guys. So I think Alvarez is the value side, but I'm still going to go with Tsarukyan. I just think that the wrestling and the grappling is going to be too much on the Tsarukyan side. I think he could take him down and hold him down, but not really a confident pick on this one. I'm really curious to see how this one goes down. And up next here, we got another women's fight. We got Priscila Cachoeira, who's coming back pretty quick, just a couple months after that fight against Jillian Robertson. And Yeon Kim, who's returning from back-to-back losses, so she definitely needs to get a win, but she has been fighting some upper echelon girls where she faced off with Alexa Grasso and Molly McCann. Both are ranked, so. But, Cachoeira, last fight obviously had a lot of controversy where she had the eye gouging incident, she missed weight. A lot of people were calling for her to just get cut from the UFC altogether, but she's getting another shot here. She's coming back pretty fast too, like I said. And she's getting a fight that should be a fun, winnable fight for her because it's going to be a stand-up fight with Yeon Kim. Fireball Kim, I mean, in my opinion, I'm a big fan of this girl. She has a long reach. She has very good boxing for the division. But sometimes it's like it seems like she gets a little bit tired, or she can get, I don't know what it is. It's like she can get flustered on the fight night because I've seen her in certain fights. I feel like she looks really excellent. Like, she's super sharp. And she's just, being very high level in her striking. But then I see other matches of hers or other fights where I feel like she just doesn't look quite as good. Obviously, when fighters try to grapple with her, that can be a big issue. But she is training in the United States more recently. She's been over at Syndicate MMA for her last few camps. And I do think that familiarity with Vegas and just fighting against better training partners every day, getting the UFC PI is going to help her improve her skill set and improve her performances. With Cachoeira, I mean, you are what you get with Cachoeira. I mean, she's the same in every fight. She is called Zombie Girl for a reason. She comes forward, ready to brawl. She has some power. She has great durability. and basically it's going to be you or her in the fight, or you're going to beat her up for 3 rounds because she's just too tough for her own good. But she just wants to go in there, get in a brawl, and try to knock you out. Her wrestling and grappling aren't very good. Her striking is not that technical, but she has the power, she has the durability, she has the cardio, and she has the heart, and that's all you need against some lower level girls in the division. But I actually think Fares Kim, I think Yeon Kim, if she comes in here and fights to her capabilities, this shouldn't be a close fight. I think she should dominate here, pick her off with the striking, use her footwork, use her superior reach, faster hands, better combinations, and really just get the better of Cachoeira. So that's kind of the side that I'm leaning towards. I think Fares Kim is going to get back on track here in this fight, but not a fight I'm very confident in once again, because I've seen Kim drop the ball in certain fights. Cachoeira always shows up and at least fights to the best of her capabilities, I guess you could say. So I am going to go with Kim, but I think it's a fight that could go either way, and the line almost being -200, I don't necessarily agree with that. And in the co-main event here, we got a light heavyweight fight. We got Misha Cirkunov, who's making his second appearance, light heavyweight. I got Misha, his old career, confused. He's making his second appearance at 185 pounds, and his last fight, he fought at 185. He got a split decision loss against Krzysztof Jotko, and he definitely slowed down in that fight. He didn't have a ton of meaningful offense. I don't know for sure if it had to do with the weight cut, but obviously I suspect it did. Making the drop again, maybe he will have a better cut here. And recently, he's really struggled primarily with durability. The loss against Jotko was a decision loss, but Cirkunov in his last 7 fights is only 2-5, and he's been knocked out 4 times. Wellington Turman, his opponent, has also had durability issues in recent years, but he was able to get back in the win column last August. He beat Sam Alvey by decision, but still needs a couple more wins to distance himself from the back-to-back knockout losses. Turman, he was expected to fight about a month ago. He was going to fight Rodolfo Vieira, but I believe Vieira had issues with the weight cut, so that fight was scrapped, and Turman was probably told to stay in shape and he'd be back in there soon. And he's getting back in here 1 month later or so. He was going to fight Makhmud Muradov, but Muradov pulled out, and now Turman is getting another fighter that's a similar style to Rodolfo Vieira in terms of being grappling heavy, so he probably didn't have to change too much of his game plan from that fight. For Makhmud Muradov, obviously he did, but I think that in terms of this matchup, it's fairly similar in a way. And Misha, he's having a way different type of matchup than fighting a striker, but Misha Cirkunov, he is the bigger guy. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. Obviously, he used to fight at light heavyweight. Both these guys are grapplers, but I think Turman, at this stage in their careers, is the better striker. Cirkunov, he's still an okay striker. He's southpaw, and he has that good left kick, and he tries to work the jab, sometimes try to time that straight or overhand left to close the distance, but he's gotten very timid recently. He doesn't really like to get in a lot of exchanges anymore. He's always been kind of stiff and slower on the feet, even for 205. So I think at 185, his speed is just not there sometimes. And in his fight with Krzysztof Jotko, it was 2 very timid fighters kind of moving around on the outside, touching each other with minimal strikes. And kind of a boring fight that Jotko won in a close decision. But Cirkunov, he needs to be a little bit more aggressive with his striking. He has to take risks, even though his chin is not there. He can't have that style, just being so inefficient on the outside, trying to jab and move, because he just isn't that type of guy. And I feel like Turman, even though he's had some issues with durability, he's 25, and he's still more in the prime of his career. He's improving. He's moved over to Glover Teixeira, MMA and Fitness, so training with the light heavyweight champion all the time. That guy, Glover Teixeira, has also beaten Misha Cirkunov by first-round finish, so that could give Turman a lot of confidence as well. And ultimately, I think on the feet, Turman with his pressure is going to give Cirkunov issues. He's going to pressure him, get on the inside, and I think Misha's going to want to grab him and grapple. And at that point, we're going to see who does a better job in the grappling realm. Cirkunov is going to be trying to hold him down and try to find that submission. He's mainly a submission grappler. He finishes almost all of his wins. I believe he hasn't won a decision in a fight since 2011, I think, so it's been quite a long time. And Turman, he's a guy that usually he'll get the finish or get finished as well, but 4 of Turman's last 5 wins have actually been decisions. So Turman, I think, has the better cardio. And one thing about Misha is he's a good grappler, but if you put him on his back, it seems like he's very weak there. He kind of panics and he gives up bad positions. And I think that Glover, having already fought Misha, is going to tell Wellington to try to push his cardio by forcing wrestling, pressure, try to wrestle, grapple. If you get taken down, just work back up to your feet. Know that you have to avoid some of that slick submission game of Cirkunov, but Turman being a black belt, I think he's going to be able to do that. Make Cirkunov work, and then eventually if you get on top, you can find that finish. And I just have more faith in Turman getting the win here. He's younger, he's coming off a victory. His coach has already defeated Misha in the past. Misha, 2 losses in a row, getting older, dropping down in weight. I never like to see that. And a lot of durability issues. I think his confidence isn't that high. If he was going to win a fight, I think it would have been the Jocko fight, man. I think it would have been his first fight, being more confident, being bigger in a new weight class against another fighter that isn't that dangerous, didn't have a big knockout threat, wasn't super aggressive, and he couldn't get the job done in that one. So I think that Wellington is going to be able to probably put the nail in Misha's coffin. I don't know if Misha will retire after this one, but I don't think it'd be a bad idea. I think Wellington Turman is going to get the win here. And then here we go. We got the main event. We got Islam Makhachev taking on everyone's favorite fighter right now, Bobby Green. And, man, I mean, I was just giving Bobby Green a lot of praise and a lot of props in his last fight, talking about how not a lot of people could come back from some of those losses and injuries and just personal life issues. And, yeah, he went in there and took care of business against Nasrat, and he looked phenomenal in that fight, man. I was actually there for those fights in the arena, and the crowd was going crazy for Bobby. It was kind of surprising, man. He had a lot of support, and he beat the brakes off Nasrat. I mean, his hand speed was phenomenal, and just looked like a really, really slick striker out there in that fight. His confidence is there, and he's rearing and ready to go. But the matchup is super different here, where he's facing Islam Makhachev, a guy that a lot of people are seeing as a future UFC champion. He obviously is training at AKA, but he's another one of these Dagestani guys. He's the main man of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he's basically been the guy that they've been talking about for years to be the suppressor to Khabib, the guy that's going to follow and become the next champion in the division and reign and do his thing there. But this is another good test for Islam. Obviously, it's not the level of fighter that he wanted to be. Bobby Green isn't ranked, and maybe not the level of fighter. I don't want to be disrespectful to Green. It's just the not the ranking and the marquee name that he probably wanted to fight. He obviously was getting ready to fight Benny Dariush, who was ranked inside the top 3 of the division. But even beating Bobby Green, if you can beat him dominantly, no one does that to Bobby Green, really. So you can make a statement even in this fight, because Bobby Green is not an easy out, and he's no tough customer, or no easy customer for anybody. But looking at this fight, I mean, Bobby's definitely up against it. I know I listened to his interview with Ariel Helwani, where he's talking about how he ballooned up to like 195, 200 pounds. So he's going to have to cut a pretty significant amount of weight even to get to 160. And I know he just fought recently, but he was talking about how he was at sushi buffets and things like that. So he probably was living it up for a week or a week and a half after that win. Wasn't expecting to fight, wasn't in the gym, and you can get out of shape pretty quick, But Bobby's a guy that, he has over 40 fights. He is that type of dude. He's a G, and he's not going to go in there and, be tired and kind of have a lackadaisical fight. He might end up getting tired after 3-4 rounds, but he's going to bring it. It'll be fun for a little bit of time. I think Islam, obviously, with his style, we know what he's going to want to do, but it's going to be interesting because he's never fought someone like Bobby Green, man. He's never fought someone that's going to have their hands down, going to have no fear of him, going to be talking to him, going to be super fast. I mean, that's one thing about Bobby Green that's really impressive, man. Even though he's 35 years old, he's still the fucking Roy Jones of the UFC. I mean, the guy has his hands down. He's slipping shots by half an inch. He's returning. His hands are super fast. His reactions are just cat-like. And, man, I mean, in a fight with a guy like Islam, who sometimes makes some big actions and sometimes has some, bad striking in terms of overextending, things like that, Bobby Green can't pop you and make you pay for it. But, being gifted with the speed and being gifted with that supreme athleticism one thing Bobby doesn't have is that power, man. He isn't a big power puncher, more volume guy, so he's not going to necessarily probably catch Islam cold with one punch and knock him out, which that's something that you'd probably want to have against a guy that has great cardio and is going to want to grind on you for 5 rounds. You want to be able to land that one-hitter quitter and get him out of there. And not that it's impossible. I mean, we did see Bobby Green recently become the first guy to knock out Ali Aquino, but just historically throughout his career, he's been much more of a volume fighter. His last fight, I believe he actually set the record for most punches landed in a lightweight 3-round fight. And, if you're landing that many punches and not getting the guy out of there, obviously you can't have extreme power. But Bobby's also a pot shotter. He will throw some decent 1-2s and some combos, but he really likes to throw like the straight right or the jab out there and kind of just pot shot with the one-and-done shot, stick and move. He's very effective with that, and he can land big shots. And when you start really pressing him and trying to pressure and come forward, that's where he can get his counter game going and land harder punches. But, one thing that Bobby's always struggled a little bit with is leg kicks. You can kick his leg and beat him up with that. And if you're explosive or you have good feints or you can back him up and get him into range, you can land on him because obviously having his hands down, the target is there to be hit. Another thing about Green, in my opinion, is I think he's an underrated wrestler, man. I mean, the guy has been able to go in there against fighters like Clay Guida, fighters like Pat Healy, fighters like Jacob Volkman, guys, I mean, those are way back in the day, but even more recently like Alan Patrick, even the Guida fight was fairly recent where he's out wrestling the wrestlers, man. He's been able to do really well against another wrestler in Jakar Close, and Bobby just has really good wrestling. He has a good single, he's very strong, he's slick, he really commits and is very aggressive when he goes to get takedowns, and I don't think he's going to be opposed to trying to take down Islam in this fight or going for takedowns. I think that, he's going to try to do that because he just is that type of guy. He wants to show Islam, I could wrestle too, but I don't think he's going to have much success with that in terms of getting takedowns and things. But, I do think Bobby's a hard guy to take down and control. I mean, his takedown defense is really good. He's super fast. He moves around. It's hard to back him up to the cage. But he does get tired when you force heavy grappling and wrestling throughout the whole fight. I've seen him kind of slow down through that midway point in the second round, the third round, and cutting a lot of weight, facing a guy that was expecting 5 rounds and is going to grapple hard for all 5 rounds. You're definitely going to probably see Bobby Green get a little bit tired. Islam Makhachev, the guy is just a phenomenal wrestler, closes the distance on you against the cage and just gets you in that body lock, can take you down, control you on the mat. And he's proven to have a really slick submission game as well. He submitted a really good black belt in Thiago Moises, and he has quite a few other submissions recently. Got the fast submission over Dan Hooker, got the submission over Drew Dober. So he's proven that he can go in there against power hitters and kind of nullify them, take them down and submit them. He's winning there against guys that could really grapple really well, like Arman Tsarukyan, like Davi Hamosh, and he's been able to show off some of his stand-up, Gleison Tebow, knock guys out, and or out-grapple really good grapplers. But he's proven that, he can blend it. He can outstrike grapplers, and he can out-grapple strikers, and he has the cardio. The one, I guess, blemish you could say about Islam is he did get knocked out cold, one-shot knocked out against, who was that? He got knocked out by another southpaw guy, and, it wasn't Adriano Martins, that's who it was. That was bothering me. But he got knocked out by Adriano Martins, and so you could say maybe his chin isn't the greatest, but we haven't really seen that tested too much. Don't really think Bobby Green has that type of power to really blast and get Islam out of there. But one thing about Bobby Green, man, like I said, he's super hard to hold down. I've seen him give his back, and it's really hard to get hooks in on him, and he's able to just kind of scramble and explode back up eventually. He has good get-ups with the cage. And I do think he's going to be able to get up a few times against Islam. I do think he's going to land some decent shots. And I think it'll be a tougher fight than some of the recent fights that Islam has had in terms of like the fight with Dan Hooker, the fight with Davi Hamosh, Drew Dober. I think you'll make him work for it. I think you'll make him work on the ground. You'll get back up to his feet a few times. But I think what the main thing that's going to happen is Bobby's going to get tired, man, through maybe like second round, middle of the second round, going into the third round, and I think that Islam is going to really start to take over, start to hold him against the cage, get the takedowns, and I don't necessarily think he's going to finish Bobby Green. I mean, Bobby Green is a guy that's notoriously hard to finish. He's had 18 UFC fights, 23 fights if you add in his Strikeforce fights. He's only been finished one time, and that was when he came back off a layoff and got knocked out against Dustin Poirier. I do think Islam could potentially land some big shots on the feet, because even if you watch like Bobby Green when he fought Guido, when he fought Pat Healy, he does allow these strikers to land some punches because he's worried about the takedown, but you know, having his hands down does help him with the sprawl, and he is going to, I think, give some issues, but like I said, I just think he's going to get tired and Islam's going to start to dominate the fight. But another thing, you know, Bobby hasn't been submitted since 2009, so that's just another reason why I think it'll be hard for Islam to get the finish. I don't think he's going to find a submission. I don't really see him getting a knockout, and maybe he'll get the submission because Bobby gets really tired, but Bobby's a guy that, you know, is an OG. He has a lot of pride. I don't see him just rolling over and allowing him to get the sub because he gassed out. So I think that Islam is going to have a long night in terms of, I think he might have some, not adversity, but struggle early. You know, he might get some shots landed on him, and it could be an interesting fight. But once Bobby gets tired, I think it'll be smooth sailing. But I think it'll be, Bobby's always going to give enough resistance to stay in there and not get finished. But it'll just be an easy fight for Islam to coast to a decision. So I'm going to go with the Islam by decision in this one. I do think the props for the over 2.5 rounds and decision have good value on this fight. So those are maybe some bets I would target if I were you guys. But the fight pick for me is going to be Islam Makhachev to win a decision here. My most confident pick on this card is going to be Ramiz Brahimaj. And for my parlay of the week, we're going to go with Ramiz Brahimaj and Jonathan Martinez. So that's my breakdown for UFC Fight Night Makhachev vs. Green. Like I said at the top of this video, please hit the like button, comment down below what your thoughts are, what you think about my predictions, what your predictions are. And let's try to get 200 likes on this video. If you want to get some action on Bellator this week, I am going to be dropping a Bellator video and dropping some bets on the Patreon. I'm going to be doing some content as well for the LFA card, KSW as a card. There's another one of those PFL Challengers cards. What did you guys think about that PFL Challenger show too? I thought it was kind of funky, you know, having them in the cage with the celebrities and kind of having them. That was kind of all weird to me, but that was they're gonna have an event with odds there, and obviously Fury FC is back. I've been doing really well in Fury FC. I've been loving Fury FC on the Sundays this year so far. So yeah, man, there's a lot of MMA going on outside the UFC. It's always good to support those other organizations and the whole world MMA, try to, you know, let it thrive and get a little bit bigger here. But yeah, so I really appreciate everyone that watched the video, everyone that likes the video, everyone that comments on the video, everyone that just supports the community at all here. So really appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week.